Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And I think probably the hottest thing right now is the border bill, immigration bill, that one of the particulars was that it allows for 5,000 migrants, I'll use the term migrants, to come in. And only if it's over 5,000 does the levers of justice trip. It did not pass, and Uncle Joe, in character, has blamed Donald J. Trump. Your thoughts? Is just your overall thoughts, and then politically, do you think it actually has any legs?
Well, of course, Biden is trying to blame Trump because he can't accept the fact that he destroyed the border.
Yes, he did.
95 executive orders in his first 100 days, all geared towards dismantling the system that Trump had that was working. We did not have anywhere near the number of people crossing. So how can he claim that this is Trump's fault? He's
Do
been
you think it
yelling.
has any legs, or do you think it has legs, or do you think it was a political mistake? That is a huge question.
I think it's a political mistake.
So I agree with you.
The polls have all shown that people disagree with how he's handling the border. This is him trying to shift the blame. Well, you know what? The American people aren't stupid. They know the problem started with Biden. Even Obama was known as the deporter in chief. He kept the border under control. Trump kept the border under control. They had the exact same laws in place as Biden has, but Biden is claiming, well, he doesn't have the power to fix it. Yeah, he broke it. He can fix it. He doesn't need any new powers. He doesn't need any new laws, and he doesn't need any more money. All he needs to do is reverse his own executive orders and enforce the existing laws.
Do you think the ruse will work? That is, all you're saying technically 100% agreed. Anyone would agree with that. Do you think the ruse will work given the mainstream media probably running with it? I have my own thoughts, but I'm interested in yours.
I don't think it's going to work. Again, the polls are already showing that the American public disapproved of his handling of the border. He went from, well, we've done everything we've can to, oh, I need more power to do this.
Or even the
Everybody's
border's secure. Remember that one?
right.
The border's
Yes, the
secure.
border is secure. And they stuck with the border is secure to the point that technically Mayorkas committed perjury by saying that
Yes, he did.
to the House and Senate. And everybody saw it, and nobody believed the border was secure when they said it. So now he's saying, well, I don't have any power to fix this. People know it's an excuse. It's not going to help him.
Well, speaking of help, it looks like he needs a lot of help. You have an NBC poll. This is not, Fox News. This is not Breitbart. That he is getting his ass kicked. He's like, any swing state. He's ahead of Biden by 5. Okay. And on issues, it's even more than that. It's something I've never seen, like 30, 40% ahead. Your thoughts? Not good.
No, it's not good for him. And in fact, that same NBC poll said that 75% of Americans do not believe he has the mental acuity to serve as president. That's not even serving another term. He doesn't have the mental acuity to be in office now. And he keeps showing that. He made the speech at a campaign stop about talking with the French prime minister, and apparently he was talking to a dead person because he was talking about a
They're dead for 30
conversation.
years.
Yeah, had been dead for 30 years at the time the conversation occurred. he was trying to answer a question about Middle East negotiations and he could not remember the name of Hamas.
Well,
He
let me interject something with that. That was really interesting because he had a lifeline from a reporter because it could have really, it was ugly to begin with. That's when he was going, the opposition. Someone said Hamas, essentially bailing his ass out. But that was his speech when he was blaming Trump. And again, a lot of eyes were on that. CNN obviously went to it and thinking, okay, he's going to blame Trump. We got to cover that. And then the whole world, the whole America sees this guy in La La Land. Like it didn't look good. And I actually think it's getting so bad. That's why on another issue, he's not going to do a Super Bowl interview, which is pretty common. He didn't do it the following year or the previous year either. But I think he's so mentally compromised. I think he couldn't handle questions about like what's your favorite? Do you like wings? Do you like hot dogs for the Super Bowl? I think it's that bad. Your thoughts?
I think it is that bad. I think the administration is trying to put him back in the basement because every time he
No
makes an
doubt.
appearance, his approval numbers go down because he shows he is not mentally capable of doing the job. And I have to question if he's even physically capable of doing the job because there was footage of him walking to Marine One, and even his walking, it did not look like a healthy person walking. And Karine Jean Pierre, I got to give her a little sympathy because she's stuck between a rock and a hard place because she can't tell what's going on because they're not giving her permission to. And she's got to make excuses for this. It is absolutely ridiculous. He is gone. And if you take a look in comparison with Donald Trump, Donald Trump is running all over the place. He's going from court to campaign stop to campaign stop. He's giving speeches. He's putting in long days. The White House is putting a lid on Biden at 4 o'clock because he's not capable of operating after 4. This is just getting worse and worse for him.
I would agree 100%. I guess the bigger question is, here's what I think. Very much interested in your take. I think, look at the polls. That's scary for NBC. Okay. In my very humble opinion, I am not Dr. Lopton. Just kidding. I think this is going to start going south. Look what's even happening in New York City. You got the average Joe, average Jane. Okay. I hearken back to the late 60s, early 70s when, we started coming apart. I'm talking about with crime, riots. You see gangs of people, undocumented, so-called migrant savages out there beating the shit out of cops and then giving the FU to America. That does not sit well in Peoria. Your thoughts? Or in New York. How does that sound?
Yeah, it doesn't sit well in Peoria, but it's not sitting well in New York either. Even in liberal cities, they are getting tired of what has happened under the Biden administration with immigration and crime. And there was a fantastic interview on CNN of all places that it was actually funny because the person being interviewed had been talking to the police, and the police were explaining that these pickpocket gangs come to New York, commit crimes, then they go down to Florida to spend the money and come back to New York to commit more crimes. And the CNN anchor asked, well, why don't they just commit the crimes in Florida? And he said, because in Florida, they would be arrested and go to jail. New York, they can get away with it.
I would agree with that. I mean, and how does it speak with the governor of New York who barely wins? Her career is effing finished. She's an abject moron to begin with. And then you got Adams, the disco mayor. How do you like that one? Sometimes on a carnivore radio, we coin a phrase. I've never heard that one, but I just came up with it. The disc, he's been in all the clubs with the chicks. He wore like a $10,000 scarf. It's like Soul Train, a bad episode of Dumber Than Rock. I don't know what the hell he's doing, giving credit cards out to illegals so they can wine and dine in anywhere they want. Meanwhile, veterans and people with maybe mental disabilities are left to fend for the getting thrown out of shelters to make room for illegals. I think with any luck, his career is finished. Although he's all of a sudden he's a diversity king now, talking about how chocolate sounds like the mayor of New Orleans back in the day. A total moron. Correct. This guy's a moron.
Yeah, Adams has done a horrible job, but I am going to cut him some slack because he actually has his hands tied behind his back by laws passed by Bill de Blasio and the city council. They're the ones that doomed New York to the death spiral it's in. Because
God,
the police, by New York City law, are not allowed to coordinate with ICE. They can't call in ICE to deport these guys that just attacked them. Bragg lets them go with no bail. And quite frankly,
whoa. No, that needs to be addressed. How come Hochul, it's a rhetorical, any sane governor would say your ass is out of here? How does that actually, you're more worried about Donald Trump on some bullshit, and it is a complete bullshit case about his property values, like basically completely victimless crime, but you let savages out with no bail. His ass should be out of there. And I think she's finished with any kind of a political future in any way. And by the way, she can change that whole sanctuary shit if she wanted to.
I'm not sure if she can change the sanctuary.
I believe she can, yes.
I think I know in New York City, it was passed by the city council. I think it's got to be repealed by the city council. What Hochul can do is fire Bragg, and she should have done that already. But of course, you know, Bragg's a Democrat. You can't turn against your own. So,
and he checks certain boxes.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. But again, as much as Bragg is at fault, the judge in the case is equally as at fault because Bragg did not request bail. The judge could have given it anyway. The judge could have held this guy on bail because this was a violent crime. And the liberal judge chose not to. This is a failure of the entire New York system. The judicial, the legislative, the executive, the city, the state. It is a complete failure. And there is more than enough blame to go around.
Doesn't it play into the great migration of people getting the F out of these nutcase blue states and getting the hell into blue states?
You're moving into red states.
Finished.
Yes.
New York is finished as a city. It had its, downtime or downtick in the 60s, came back in the 80s with Koch, and then we had Giuliani, and it is hasta nueva. It may be beyond the point of no return.
Yeah, I don't know if it's beyond the point of no return. Again,
it's real close.
I lived in New York in the 70s, and quite frankly, it was worse then than it is now, and things did turn around. So I'm not going to say it's finished. It can recover, but not if they keep the current political leadership. If New York continues to blindly vote Democrat, and worse, vote left-wing Democrat rather than even centrist Democrat. Remember, Ed Koch was a very centrist Democrat, and he was the one that
he'd be thrown out of the Democratic Party.
He would. At this point, his ideas are too conservative for the current batch of Democrats. But they've got to turn the party around. If they keep going further and further to the left, there will be no return.
They got no more than 6 years. You got a couple terms, and then it's over because you're going to have people that can flee are going to flee. The people that make New York, the go-getters, the people that contribute are go. Why would you ever stay there? Now, I got it. Maybe right now, hope against hope. Give it another 4 years. Anyone that's going to be able to get out is out of there.
Possibly, but I think
I'll throw Philly in that too.
I think there's a canary in the coal mine for both Philadelphia and New York that I think could scare them enough to actually shock them into action. And that is California, because San Francisco's in a death spiral, Los Angeles is in a death spiral, but unlike Pennsylvania and New York State, the state of California is in no condition to help them. Pennsylvania can help Philadelphia. New York State can help New York City. The state of California is bankrupt. They have nothing. There's nothing they can do to bail out San Francisco and LA. And I think when the people of New York and City and the people of Philadelphia take a good look at what is happening to LA and San Francisco, because again, they're still hanging on by a thread, but I don't think they can hang on much longer. And when they see it just plummet, that's when they're going to go, oh, you know what? We don't have the resources anymore because all of the high taxpayers have moved out. All of the businesses are leaving, especially since you don't have to have workers in offices anymore. In fact, New York Community Bank, who is highly invested in New York real estate, is reeling on the stock market because they are in big trouble because of the office market. So I think you're going to see LA and San Francisco are going to be the canaries in the coal mine to make these other cities go, oh, shoot, we've only got one shot left. If we don't take it, we're dead too.
Very good point. I would agree with that 100%. But again, reflecting back on the whole analogy about canary in the coal mine, for the American voter overall, I'm talking across the country, do you think FU America, they see these people, so-called migrants? I think that has had a huge effect and will have a continuous huge effect on Biden's chances. It blows up the whole thing about asylum seekers, and then wait till the summer in Chicago. That's not going to be pretty either.
No, I'm sure it won't be. No, the video of the migrant criminals flipping the bird to the United States is not going over well with the American public. It completely blows the Biden narrative that we are helping poor migrants escape from bad situations. But quite frankly, I think even more important than the image of them flipping the bird is two factors, both thanks to Governor Abbott of Texas. One was him busing the migrants to sanctuary cities, because now the sanctuary cities are going, wait a minute, this is a small percentage of what Texas has been dealing with, and we can't handle it. This has got to stop. And second, you have seen a dramatic drop in the number of migrants crossing in Texas. There has been a corresponding jump in migrants crossing in Arizona and California. Why the shift? Because Governor Abbott put up razor wire and actually started putting barriers up. Guess what? Walls work.
Yeah, of course. They always knew walls work. They just didn't want to admit it because they like this on so many levels. What do you think about the Mayorkas impeachment failure? Any thoughts? I don't think it's as big of a deal as some think.
The Mayorkas impeachment was always going to fail. It was a sideshow that the Republicans should never have bothered with. Yes, does Mayorkas need to be
100%.
held responsible for his lack of enforcement at the border? Absolutely. Does the Biden administration need to be held accountable? Absolutely. But we all knew, even if impeachment passed the House, it was dead in the Senate. It was never
That
going to have an effect. It was a sideshow that wasted time and should not have been bothered with.
100%. What do you think of McConnell? Is he going to resign? I mean, he first of all, the bill was ridiculous. I'm talking about the immigration bill that he helped co-author or push through. I don't know. Is he done? He doesn't fit into the
I
current Republican Party. He's a country club Republican.
I don't know if he's done or not. We've heard calls for him to resign before. We heard calls for him to resign back during the Trump administration from no less than Trump
Yes.
himself. And he's still there, he's still serving. So I think this is another tempest in a teapot. I think he's going to be there as long as he wants to be there. Now, if he still wants to be
Cognizant or
there,
not.
that's another statement, because quite frankly, we're hearing from a lot of senators and congresspeople who are just saying, you know what? This is just too toxic an environment. I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Well said. Now we talked about this for the last several weeks, but continuous developments in the Georgia case. Any further thoughts on that? I've heard some analysis. Looks like there could be a ruling basically putting her aside. Then there's more time to basically get things. I don't know if it's going to have the impact on the election that they believed it would. Your thoughts?
I don't even know if they're going to be able to move forward with this case prior to the election. Because as I understand it, and understand I am not an expert in law, I'm not an expert in how this stuff works, I am taking this from other experts. But as I understand it, if if she is removed from the case, it's not simply a matter of assigning another attorney in her office to the case. Her entire office could be disqualified from moving forward on the case.
Oh
Which
no,
means,
no, that's you're no. Even though you're not a lawyer, you're right on that. I've heard several analysis about that. That they're going to have to move the jurisdiction. That's going to take an awful lot of time. It's basically starting from ground zero, and
yes,
time flies. It's not that far off from the election. I don't see where, and according to what I've heard and read, is that any judge is going to have to dismiss her. That's already done. There's
yeah.
no
So
way
if
she can proceed.
if they dismiss her, her entire office is going to have to be disqualified from the case. They're going to have to move the jurisdiction. First of all, they've got to find a jurisdiction willing to take on the case. And then the attorneys in that jurisdiction are going to have to start from square one. So I don't know that they're even going to be able to find a jurisdiction that wants to stick their hand in this can of worms. Never mind move the jurisdiction and get it back up and running in time to prosecute before the election.
100%. And the only other thing I'm scratching my head between Bragg and Lakeisha and these others, I don't know, but where they went to law school, but sign me up because it can't be all that difficult to graduate. Wow,
No,
a
I'm
genius.
I'm I'm guessing they got their law degrees from Cracker Jack University.
Yeah, like God, amazing. Like some guy. No, remember like in the old days when they used to have matches and they'd have you too can be a nuclear physicist. I think
Yeah,
she answered
yes.
that. There you
Yes,
go.
on the back of the
Um,
matchbook, you too can be a
yeah,
lawyer.
you too can. There you go. Yeah, you can be anything, and why I bring that up is John Kerry, who's basically a grifter and a cad. He's now stepping down, and now they're looking at the millions he spent. I don't know on what, but he did, and kind of like nothing to show for it. Oh well.
No, he's got nothing to show for everything he spent. And quite frankly, I would not be surprised if they take a really close look at this. You're going to find that a lot of that money actually went to his wife for use of the private jet, which he's been flying around in yelling about climate change. Yeah, the whole Biden climate change agenda is falling apart. The wind farms,
EVs
the wind, well, the EVs, nobody wants them.
collapsing.
General Motors has announced they're pulling back on EVs, although Ford has doubled down. They say they are going to build more. The wind farms are
Called
falling
suicide.
apart because, thanks to runaway government spending and inflation, they're no longer profitable for an energy company to participate in. His bans on liquid natural gas are actually contraindicated if you're concerned about climate change, because by
No,
keeping
you need to address that, because that to me shows what the real motivation is. Natural gas is essentially almost carbon free, almost completely clean.
well,
So if your motivation was greenhouse gases, it seems to be more TikTok influencers.
yeah, it's liquefied natural gas isn't completely clean. There is an effect
Well,
on carbon
pretty clean.
emissions, but compared to coal and oil, it is amazingly
There you go.
clean. And US
Yes.
liquefied natural gas is infinitely cleaner than what is coming from overseas. So, by putting a moratorium on liquefied natural gas terminals, by cutting down on our production of liquefied natural gas, you're actually making climate change worse because you're forcing a reliance on less clean energy.
Oh, same thing we do with even domestic oil. We're cleaner than almost any place
Yes.
in the world, but yet we're relying on Venezuela and others. It's a genius policy from a genius person, that is Kerry, the same genius that put together the Iran nuclear deal, which I think you could probably be on crack and do a better job. And now it looks like Iran is very close to the bomb. And they'll blame Trump, though. We'll say because he got out of the nuclear deal. They're like 3 months
Well,
away. There you go.
they've been close to the bomb for quite a while. In fact, when Trump first removed the US from the Iran nuclear deal, Iranian officials stated that they didn't care because they were so much closer to having the nuclear energy and the nuclear bomb than they were before the deal went through, which
Of course.
means they had been ignoring the deal the whole time and working on
Shocking.
this. Yes, I know, it's absolutely amazing. Iran lied. Well,
Scary.
so I mean, this is not new. And it's
Will he
why,
blame Trump?
of course, he'll blame Trump. He blames Trump for anything. When it's raining
Now, is it
outside,
now?
he goes, it must be Trump's fault.
Serious question. Is it the boy who cried wolf? I think it has diminishing returns.
Yeah, it's definitely the
The
boy
whole
who
cry
cried wolf,
Trump thing.
because you are seeing more and more people. You're seeing more and more incredibly vocal liberals start saying, you know what? Trump doesn't seem so bad anymore. You know what? I'm not taking voting for Trump off the table. These were never Trumpers that were so against him. And now they're going, oh, you know what? Things were better then.
Yeah, even when I say even, which I really like, I love this Dr. Eric E. Lopton, because I wish, well, Jews are getting on board, but they better get their ass a little on board a little quicker. But you have blacks. Biden is bleeding black support, like 20%. And it's actually worse than that, because a lot of blacks who are dissatisfied are moving from blue to red, which makes it even worse. The swing states that he needs is my point. Okay, or I should say swing states, not blue states. And you have I love, and I think he's really smart. I've heard him on a couple interviews. 50 Cent basically saying "F you, Biden." Other Snoop is like,
Yeah,
and then even Dave Chappelle. I just saw a little routine on Dave Chappelle. He's like, "Yeah, I like Trump because he's telling the effing truth."
that's it. You have very high profile African Americans coming out and
Accomplished.
saying, yes, Biden is full of it. Biden is not good for the African American community. He's done nothing. And let's face it, the African American community are the ones that saved Biden's election campaign in 2020.
Yes.
They are turning on him. And, Trump doesn't have to
But why
win.
shouldn't they? Because we know if you're a black person, right, and you depend on a leg up, you depend on subsidization, other things, and you see all of a sudden illegals getting 10 times what do you get? No
Yes.
one gives a black person a credit card. Hey, go out there and just say, no, you want to go to McDonald's? You want to take the wife and kids out. No big deal. That doesn't happen. I'd be pissed too.
Yeah. And that anger is boiling over. So, you know, Trump doesn't have to win the majority of black voters
Not at all.
in order to win the presidency. He needs to carry about 25 to 30%. And at this
Oh,
moment
that's,
in time,
yes.
this far ahead of the election, he's there already. And as Biden
Actually, it's
keeps
more like
sliding,
20 and it's game over.
yeah. So, and
And
as Biden
Hispanics, he's
keeps
crushing
sliding,
too.
exactly,
Yeah.
the traditionally
Very
democratic
interesting.
the traditionally democratic audiences are leaving, and it's not that they've changed, it's that Biden has failed them, it's that the Democratic Party has moved too far to the left. Again, we've said this over and over again. I think Bill Maher was the one that coined the phrase, but I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And that is what they are seeing. And if they keep doubling down on these ridiculous left wing policies, they're going to see more and more of their base leave. This is why the Democratic Party is spending so much time in court trying to keep Trump off the ballot, trying to keep no labels off the ballot, because they've reached the point where they realize if this keeps up, they cannot win a national election.
No question. And I think that would be a watershed day if the Republicans flip the black vote, not just flip, I know that's unreal, 30%. That would be a comeuppance. The only thing I would have to say, get the liberal Jews on board as well, like Spielberg and Zuckerberg. I mean, hello, geniuses.
Yeah, I mean, I still do not understand the Jewish loyalty to the
Geniuses.
Democratic Party. Biden signed an executive order just a few days ago placing sanctions against Israeli settlements who allegedly are committing violence in the Gaza Strip. Now, first of all, they're defending themselves. Second of all, Israeli officials have already come out and said these are lies being spread by anti Semites. This is not happening. And yet Biden is trying to kowtow to the Muslim vote, especially in Michigan, of all places.
Which he's going to lose.
Which, yeah, it looks like they're abandoning him as well. For the other reason, though, everybody else is abandoning Biden because he went too far to the left. They're abandoning him because he didn't go far enough.
Do you feel sorry for Uncle Joe? He's got no friends. I don't think Jill really likes him either, because if she liked him, she wouldn't have the moron run. He's got no friends.
Yeah, no, I
don't you feel bad, Dr.
I
Watson?
don't feel bad for him. I have no sympathy for him because he was never a nice guy. He has always been this nasty SOB who had a great press machine that pushed the lunch pail Joe image. But we are seeing this was never the case. throughout his career. Again, wrong on every foreign policy decision for 50
Oh, wrong on
years.
almost no.
He
I
was,
think that's being too nice to him. He's been on wrong on pretty much everything.
well, yes, but I'm
That's too
quoting.
nice, I think.
I'm
I know. I'm just
quoting, you
kidding.
know.
Yes.
But on top of that, we see the history of made up stories, of lies, of plagiarism. It's like he was never out for anybody but himself. And now it's all coming to light.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And speaking about lying, how disgusting is it that a week ago he was. I'm sick of the effing Bo crap. Okay, we've all lost loved ones. Yeah, I know that's brutal. That's awful. But you need to give people their just mourning period. Okay, get out of your own skin for a while, and how about some empathy? Because he's a sociopath and they cannot have any empathy or sympathy. This lady just lost her kid serving in the military, and he's talking about friggin' Bo. I'm sick of friggin' Bo. Okay, he didn't die in Iraq. Just stop it.
No, he did not die in Iraq. Everybody knows that. He's incapable of empathizing with anybody. And I mean, honestly, though, I think this is indicative. If you look at the textbook examples of dementia, this is one of the signs. He cannot focus on what's going on right now. His mind keeps going back. He can remember, far back, again,
Bo.
he can't remember who he spoke to in France, but he can remember who led France 30 years earlier. He can remember Bo, but he can't remember the people that he's in front of. This is dementia.
You are correct, Dr. Lopkin. There, you earned your doctorate. I like that. I want to close on one thing. We did this years ago. That actually companies used to be like after 55, you're pretty much through. But they're actually trying to recruit. It's been going on for a while. Recruit older people because younger people don't seem to be really getting it. And speaking of younger people, Gen Xers or whatever, there's basically a whole category of, we use the term neurosis, mental illness, and it's called extreme climate anxiety. Surprise, surprise, they want old farts like me because the kids aren't showing up for work because they're freaking out about the sun or the earth might get a little hotter. Imagine like 20 years ago calling up your boss and saying, Steve, Jane, Nancy, whatever, I can't go to work. The wife and I are really concerned about that it's raining out.
Yeah, it's actually Gen Z and something called Gen Alpha that is doing this. Unfortunately, being Gen X, I can no longer claim that there's any relationship between Gen X and youth. Those days are long gone. But yeah, we
there
are
you go.
seeing
Everything's relative.
yes, we are seeing Gen Zers claim that they have to see therapists because they're so worried about climate change. Now, this is something that the Democrats and the far left have pushed on them because I remember very clearly going back to elementary school in the 70s being told that
the Ice Age.
by the year 2000 we were going to see another ice age. And then all of a sudden, oh no, it's not happening. And oh, now it's global warming and everything's going to turn into a desert by by
Wait a second,
2010.
the Statue of Liberty was going to be
the Statue of Liberty was going to be underwater. And the fact of the matter is,
can you explain something to me? Explain something to me. I had a beach. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Climatologists have been wrong about every prediction they've made. And I'm not saying that climate change isn't real. It is. But the effects that they have been predicting have never been as severe as they predicted, have never been as
and the
soon.
causes.
have never been as soon as they predicted, and they failed to get the causes right.
Yeah,
It is
it's a
this
combination of human and natural occurrences. You know, even the things like the tilt of the Earth. Yes, the activity on the sun. I'm not an idiot. I mean, I definitely believe that humans have a huge impact on the environment. But where
yes.
I don't like is because I think when you're talking about the left, it's just a useful tool for more control, just like they did under COVID, that turned out to be all essentially a bunch of bullshit. But last thing is, we talk about the economy and people not showing up to work. I, even though the jobs numbers were great, there's a huge thing that companies are really starting to lay off. It makes no sense, Dr. Lopkin, but it seems like it's happening as the employment numbers go up. There's a huge, not a huge, there's an underswell of layoffs from very big companies. How does that happen, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, it happens because the job numbers were not as good as everybody is talking about. I've seen a couple of analyses, all from financial folks on Wall Street talking about financial effects. These are not political analyses. And the fact of the matter is, the underlying data is seriously flawed. And this is because the information that the government is collecting is from a survey, and the number of respondents in the survey has been dropping dramatically. So their estimates tend to be more and more askew. And people who are tracking this to track the economy, to track stock prices, to track financial markets have all been saying at this point they need to rely more on the ADP numbers than the government's numbers. Now,
And what are the
the ADP numbers are based on actual payrolls, and those numbers
and
are
how do they look?
nowhere near as good as what the Labor Department is claiming.
Doesn't that make you even feel worse for Uncle Joe? He's got nothing to grab. No lifeboats.
No, it's,
The
I mean,
Titanic once again.
it is absolutely amazing. I mean, the economy is not in bad shape by any stretch of the
No, not at all.
imagination. Let's not say, oh, everything's doom and gloom. No, the economy is actually in a pretty decent place. It's not as good a place as Biden wants you to believe. It's not in bad shape as the Republicans would want you to believe, but it is also not in as good shape as it would have been had Biden not reversed a lot of Trump policies. He actually held the economy back. And the increased government spending is responsible for the runaway inflation. And again, we've said this time and time again. He keeps claiming that inflation is going down. Inflation has not gone down in his entire administration. The rate that inflation is going up has slowed, but it is still now 3% up 3% from when it was up 5% from when it was up 5% from 9%. So it is cumulative. That's why the American people don't feel that the economy is in a good place because they're still spending 17 cents for every dollar that they used to spend. So for every dollar that they're paying out, for every dollar they paid out under Trump, they're now paying $1.17, and that's going up as well. I think it's almost at $1.20 now, and that takes a chunk out of the American paycheck. And wages, even though they went up, did not go up as fast as inflation did, which is essentially the same thing as your paycheck shrinking.
No question about it. But speaking of spending, we'll actually close on this. There's plans to, after the conflict in Gaza is over, that we are poised to spend a half a trillion rebuilding that area, but I don't see any participation from Saudi Arabia or other extremely rich OPEC nations. I wonder why. Because maybe because we're so stupid and Biden's so you can't build a coalition of a bunch of people to help.
Yeah,
or do they really care about the Palestinians?
No, this is Joe Biden trying to kowtow to the Muslim population of the Democratic Party. If Biden is out of office by the time the war ends, Trump is not going to spend $500 billion rebuilding Gaza. And quite frankly, you want to spend $500 billion rebuilding? Spend it rebuilding Chicago.
There you go. Well, on that note, we will conclude another edition of Carnivore Bites. Great show, Dr. Lopkin. Of course, our listeners can participate in the process, can't they?
Yes, let us know what you're thinking. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page and message us. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. Fill out the contact form and let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.